There it goes. I am recording this because I know that we scheduled this very last minute. Not everyone that wants to get this information will be able to participate. So we do plan to get this posted on the DHHS YouTube video or channel today, and then we'll send that link out to our entire network. So for anyone who doesn't know me or who's starting to log on, I'm Melissa Hatfield. I'm the Bureau Chief for the Bureau of Housing Supports. BHS is the collaborative applicant for the Balance of State Continuum of Care. For those of you who have participated in a Continuum of Care competition in the past, throw out everything you remember because our time frame shrunk to about this big, and we are the name of the game is flexibility and adjusting this year. So I'm thanking you in advance for your patience and understanding through this entire process. Usually we have about 90 days for this full competition. From the date it was released till the date it's due, we had 60. And we are down to, I'm looking at my countdown, we are down to 52 days as of today for when this is due. These are not timeframes set by me. They are not timeframes I enjoy or appreciate, but they are timeframes that we are working within. Real quick, some of the timeframes that are going to impact all of you the most are project applications. HUD sets a deadline of 30 days before the due date. My binder's behind me. I'm not reading it exactly. Project applications are due into the collaborative applicant. That's August 30th. HUD has not released the project application templates yet. So we can't even give you exactly what HUD's looking for yet because they haven't released them to us. So what's going to happen today is a very high level overview of everything that's coming. And maybe not everything because we don't know it all yet. We are not going to be voting on anything in this meeting as I originally thought we would, because we just have not been able to put everything together that we need to in order to vote. And I know that we don't have enough people here. So we will be doing electronic votes as allowed by our governance charter, all in one Survey Monkey. So the whole survey will go out. You'll get a description of what we're asking you to vote on. And it will be a relatively quick turnaround that we're asking for. The other thing that we don't know yet is exactly how much bonus funding we have available. We have an estimate based on old numbers in our grant inventory worksheet. We don't know exactly what our domestic violence bonus is yet. And we think we know what our reallocation total is, but we'll put it all out at the same time together. So, so that being said, if everyone could introduce yourself in the chat, your name, the agency you work for, anything else you would like to identify with, your pronouns, if you'd like to do that. We encourage you to share your representation with us. I am going to turn it over to Melanie Mondello from the Technical Assistance Collaborative to give us the high-level overview of this year's competition, and then we will talk about the supplemental competition for rural and unsheltered homelessness. We will talk a little bit about HUD's priorities in the scoring tool, and then we'll wrap it all up at the end. So Melanie, will you need to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Okay, give me half a second here.
Okay, so for those of you that haven't met me, my name is Melanie Mondello, and I work for the Technical Assistance Collaborative, otherwise known as TAC. And I've been working with New Hampshire for, I guess, almost 10 years on this NOFO COC program fund. So like Melissa said, we have a really short time frame. So that's not great, but you have a lot of experience behind you and you have systems in place. So we're just trying to move as fast as possible while keeping integrity to get you the information you need if you're considering a new project this year under the regular NOFO, which Melissa, you may have said already, is different than the special NOFO that you've probably been talking about in other forums. So this is regular COC business. What I'd like to do is I did a summary of the NOFO, what's been available to us so far. Everything has not been released, so it's an abbreviated summary. It is 11 pages, which I'm not going to read to you, but I want to share them on the screen, and I'll kind of roll through and try not to make everyone too dizzy as we go through, just to give you the highlights about where HUD's putting their priorities this year and kind of what we can expect when they do publish the questions out and we're able to actually start writing the responses that you need to get some money into New Hampshire. So,
and we will share all of these documents after the fact. We just don't have them right this moment to share. So stay tuned for everything coming from us. We will make sure you get it.
yes. So Melissa already went over the time frame. So I'm just gonna, everyone can kind of close their eyes as I scroll down to the important part. There we go. So this year HUD, it's a 200-point scale with 25 bonus points. This chart is helpful just so you can see where kind of HUD is putting their priorities. So you can see like what kind of community responses we're going to be speaking to in the questions. So you can see coordination, which is number 1, and coordination, which is number 6, are, you know, half the points of the whole competition. So coordination, engagement of people with lived experience, engagement of stakeholders, all of that is really where HUD is putting a lot of emphasis. And then also you'll see number 5, system performance, something we've talked about every year. Biggest change there is last year they gave us a little bit of a break because of the pandemic. And this year they put all the points back. So you're going to be, you know, judged on what was submitted. I think it was last April or maybe February, whatever your community submitted based on performance measures. That data will inform part of the points and our narrative about what we're doing to stop people from entering homelessness, get them out of homelessness quickly. All of those things, our narrative about your community response will be the remainder of the points. So some of it's predetermined based on data you've already submitted. Some of it we have a little bit of control over as we talk about your community response. So this is nothing that any of you have to like dig into deeply. Christy, Melissa, and Mandy and I will dig deep into this when HUD gives us the questions, but just wanted you to kind of see where HUD was putting their emphasis this year around where they want you to spend your time as a homeless response system. I'm going to scroll down past some of this attachment. So new key changes, the 200 points. So it's more points, which means more questions, which is fine. The biggest change this year is they put back the tiers. So I think there's some new faces here. What HUD does is they say, hey, Balance of State, New Hampshire, you have this many renewal projects. It's worth, I'm just going to make up a number, $5 million. And then they say, well, you can have 95% of that 5 million. As long as you put in an application, do a pretty decent job, we're going to guarantee you basically 95% of your current money. And then they make you compete for the other part. So this year it's called Tier 1 and Tier 2. Tier 1 is going to be 95% of the current renewal projects are mostly guaranteed. Use that word lightly with federal government funding. And then 5% of it is going to be competitive nationally. You all do well, you do well in the competition. I anticipate you'll continue to do well, but it is stressful for whatever project is in that 5%. We just want to acknowledge that, but these are the rules that HUD has set up. Maybe it will be a new project based on reallocation funds, but it just, you know, we wanted to tell people the tiering is back. So when you see the project list that Christy publishes, you'll see Tier 1, Tier 2, and then our DV bonus project. So just wanted everyone to know that. I think this part here is what people will be most excited about. New projects, there is COC bonus project funding. There is DV bonus project funding available. The biggest change here is some of you may remember last year, HUD did bonus points to talk about, to incentivize you to do partnerships in a new project application to bring in money, right? Money and resources from either places that had housing funds for subsidies or actual units. and a second bucket of bonus points for projects that can bring in formal written agreements with healthcare entities to provide some of the supportive services that people need when they're exiting homelessness and going into some of these programs. So those changed from bonus points last year to regular points this year. And when I did the math, HUD is really serious about these. We knew that, but they kind of put their money where their priorities were. The new questions around new projects with housing subsidies that aren't COC or ESG funded, and new healthcare partnerships that bring money into projects, each of those questions is worth 3.5 of the points, 3.5% of the points available. So 7% of a national competition is based on checking the box on these two things. So that's going to be really important as you think about new projects, as you apply for the bonus, the DV bonus, and any reallocation money, that if you can bring this to the table, it helps your COC stay competitive. And my disclaimer, I'm all about the points during the NOFO. It also helps because it gets better projects. But for this conversation, it helps you stay competitive so you can continue to get additional money every year and keep all of your current projects as you'd like to see them. So I'm going to stop there for half a second and see if there's any questions that came up, or if I'm just talking in Greek, if anybody needs me to decode a little better about HUD speak. Any questions? All the cameras are over here, so I'm just looking over here.
I have a quick one. When do we find out that whether we're in tier 1 or tier 2? When does that list come out from Melissa?
I can review that at the end, Melanie. I've got the time frame kind of built out.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Ellen, I'll pull it up and I'll have that answer for you before it's over, okay?
Good.
Yeah, we will have a final priority listing, and the ranking and scorings will go out per usual, and you will have a chance to appeal as well, which is built in. I just want to remind everybody that all of your annual performance reports, which is part of the scoring process, were previously sent out this year for all of your agencies to review. And you are being scored on the calendar year of 2021.
Okay. So I wanted to highlight that the emphasis on building equity into your system is also actually written in even more deeply into the NOFO this year. The first year they started talking about this, they wanted evaluation. The second year they wanted plans. So they kind of keep saying, you'll evaluate, you'll plan, you'll implement. So this year they're really looking for evaluation. They're looking for what you actually did. So the plan, and then what you did, and then that you implemented evaluation. So you've evaluated what issues there are, you've done something to rectify those issues, and then looking at, did what you do, right? Increase equity, decrease disparity. So again, we're waiting for the questions. We don't know exactly what HUD wants us to speak about there, but that's the general kind of guidance that they've given that we'll need to speak about this year. They also, it's a little later in the document, but I'll speak to it now. They also are emphasizing what's happening at the project level. So a lot of it has been about the COC policy here, right? For equity, anti-discrimination. But you can see here, they have talked now about developing provider anti-discrimination policies and making sure there's feedback and assistance on that. So there may be questions this year where we have to follow up with you all to say, okay, this is what we do at the COC level. We need a little bit more detail about what you do at the agency level. Again, waiting for the details on that. And then, they did define underserved communities. So if that's something that you think applies to any of your area, I would read that definition and see, it might be something we have to speak to when they publish the questions. But again, we don't know the questions yet. So that's some of the just highlights of what we've seen around equity for anti-discrimination policies and questions that are going to be coming our way. For policy priorities, you know, typical fashion, these are all the things that you should be doing, right? Everything under the sun, or all the policy priorities are all the policies. But you all, again, do some really good stuff in this area. There'll be plenty to talk about in the NOFO. What I wanted to kind of highlight was these last four. So increasing the affordable housing supply is not directly under the control of your COC, but it may be part of the role of some of your members, some of you on the phone, you know, on the call right now. So increasing affordable housing supply is a new question this year about what was done to decrease zoning barriers, things like that, what you're doing to work with entities in your state to increase the housing supply. So I would expect more and more emphasis on that. So it'll probably be a couple points this year, but I just wanted to plant that seed in everyone's head. We're going to need to think to make sure we're at the right tables and be able to talk to that to, again, continue to have you be a strong applicant so that you can continue to score well and get money into the balance of state New Hampshire.
And Melanie, to give some reassurance to the group, so all three continuums of care actually sit on the Council for Housing Stability, the statewide council, and addressing the lack of affordable housing is a huge part of that work. And there are a lot of other continuum of care members who participate in our work groups in our subcommittee. So if you aren't actively involved and you'd like to be, let me know. I can get you connected with one of those work groups, but that work is happening across the state. It's slow and we don't have enough yet, but there's work being done to address it. So if you want more information, let me know.
Yeah. Great. Some places where they increased or decreased points. Again, it kind of tells you where their policy priorities are. There's a list here. I'm not going to read it to you. We're still waiting on the details of what the question changes are. If something had decreased points, it doesn't mean it's not so important to them. They're just putting their emphasis somewhere else. So HUD still does want to see that families are not separated. They just sometimes they put that as a priority question. And then as soon as enough people are saying yes to it, they'll decrease points and emphasize somewhere else. So it's not to undo the good work that you've done in discharge planning and families. It's just we're not going to continue to get points for your past good work. We're going to need new future good work. So we're just going to have to keep, you know, taking lots of credit for all the work that you do throughout the year. So I just wanted to highlight that. Let's see. Just scanning through for the stuff that is kind of the biggest. You can see here the new questions. I marked with the bold parenthesis new, the dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, DV. There will be different questions that we have to answer this year if we want DV bonus funds. We're waiting for those details. So there still will be questions, but they hinted in what it has been published that they'll be a little bit different. Training people on the needs of LGBT at individual level, agency and COC level, around policy and compliance. That's a new emphasis. It's always been there, but not really talking about the compliance piece of it, of what the COC does if someone is discriminating or doesn't have policies that are following the COC policies. This question here, we might need some, you know, group think from local, smaller local efforts that are going on. HUD has talked about ensuring that you're working with your state to not criminalize homelessness, like not make it illegal to sleep out, you know, be in a public park, that type of thing. This year, they took it a step further. They want to know not only what you're doing to prevent policies from doing that, but they want to know if you have bad policy now or policy that criminalizes homelessness, what are you doing to reverse it? So that we just might need some, like, you know, feedback if there's something in one particular county. Again, waiting on the details of that question. A big new emphasis on SOAR, which again, I think you're really strong in. So we'll just need to talk about that around certifications and at the project and COC wide level. Non-congregate shelter here, again, you guys have been living this. It's really thinking about Are you ready to put non-congregate in the future if you need it? What are the lessons learned from COVID? A lot of the rest of this, oh, this is that zoning question I was telling you about. What are we doing to reduce the regulatory barriers to affordable housing, right? All of our wishes and dreams. But like Melissa said, you guys are working on that at the statewide level. And I think the rest of this, oh, this is really exciting. I don't know, Melissa and Christy, if you found this yet. So every year, you do really well in your permanent supportive housing. You have 96% of people who either stay or leave for a permanent housing place. And we've lost points on that question because you can't do much better. Like if you're already at 96 or 98, to increase by a full percentage point is really tough. So this year, HUD set some criteria. So like for successful exits to permanent housing, if you're already at, I think it was 96%, you're going to get points even if it didn't go up any higher. So I think that will really help New Hampshire because you already had really high like responses and good data, but you were kind of getting penalized because you couldn't do any better than the 90 percentages in some of the categories. So I think this will help over the long term. And you can see I was super excited about it because been waiting for this for years. We talked about leveraging already. Still big emphasis on including people with lived experience at all levels of the process. So making sure the voices of the people that are going to be, impacted mostly by these programs are having a hand in designing those and giving feedback to those of us working within the system. And I think that is all I would highlight there. The rest of it is more like things for Christy, Melissa and I to watch out for as we get those detailed questions. Okay, I'm going to pause there before we kind of maybe pivot a little bit into project applications. Any questions on the content? Melissa, do you want me to go over these project things or wait until we do the scoring?
So I think we'll shift our agenda just a little bit so we can keep flowing through. So if you do this part and then Christy can talk about the scoring and then we'll have Mandy bring up the end.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful. And then at the very end, I will share our tentative timeline with the whole group.
Perfect. Yep. So like I talked about, there's bonus funds, there's DV bonus funds. You can also continue to expand projects, which means if you have a current project and you want to make it a little bigger, serve more people, add new housing units, whatever the bigger part is, HUD is allowing that again this year. I know you're a YHDP community. Don't worry about this bullet. You're not in renewal yet. This is going to apply to you in a couple of years. So just wanted to highlight there are new funds. All new projects, all renewal projects have a scoring tool process that Christy can talk about more. But this is the calculation. Like Melissa said, HUD hasn't published what these numbers actually are yet. So we're kind of guessing. We're doing our best HUD math without their publication to figure out how much new money is out there for you to apply for. Okay, I'm just going to scroll to make sure there's nothing else. I think the rest of it is going to be available to you for details if you're actually going after some money. I think you'll want to read more about this bonus funds. You'll want to read more about, I'm going to scroll to the bottom. There's a chart that's much easier to read. There's a chart here about what bonus money can be used for and what DV bonus money can be used for. So as this publishes, if you're doing a new project, the latter half of this document is good for you to review as you go forward. And the tools that Christy's going to go over are really based on what HUD put as eligible activities and what you incentivize as a local COC. So I'm going to stop that share. Again, that document will go out for Melissa when everything goes out. And I think I'm going to pass it to Christy to talk about tools.
Good morning, everyone. Just before I jump into the tools, for all of you subrecipient agencies who are on this call, you were sent out last year's project application from the FY 2021 NOFO to review by Friday. Because we do not have access to the FY 2022 project applications as of yet, but I don't anticipate any big changes for renewals. And lastly, I will be sending out match templates, hopefully by the end of today, for all of you to put those together. In regards, I'm going to share my screen. I remember how to do this. In regards to the ranking and scoring tools, we made a couple of changes to the ranking and scoring tools, both for new projects and for renewal projects this year. There were 2 questions added specifically around equity. If you can remember, last year we sent out a supplemental questionnaire tool, which had numerous questions on it from an equity perspective. Last year, we only included 4 questions. You can see on the screen, it's questions 18 to 21 that were scored on. This year, we are proposing adding 2 more questions. Question 22, does your agency have a process for receiving and incorporating feedback from persons with lived experience? And then, has your agency reviewed participant outcomes in your current projects with an equity lens? The reason we are proposing adding these questions is because the specific HUD policy priorities within the NOFO. In regards to the first question, has your agency reviewed participant outcomes with an equity lens? This is specifically cited in the NOFO on page 72, having the COC address racial disparities in the provision of outcomes of homelessness assistance and taking steps to address those disparities. And also looking at in the review of project capacity and rank. Projects are rated and ranked based on the degree to which their project has identified any barriers to participation faced by people of different races, ethnicities, and particularly those who are overrepresented in the local homelessness population, and how you've taken steps to eliminate those barriers. One of the other big things that I want to point out as well is that one of the things that we look at when we do on-site monitoring of subrecipient agencies is participant satisfaction surveys as well. So that's one of the questions we're looking at. And then the second question is, does your agency, I flipped them, I'm sorry. Does your agency have process for reviewing and receiving and incorporating feedback from persons with lived experiences? This is another one of HUD's big policy priorities that I know we've been talking about for the last couple of years. The Balance of State Continuum of Care participated in some TA around incorporating people with lived experience. And HUD is really pushing for COCs to include people with lived experience in the planning processes. And we're also looking at ensuring that we're involving people who have lived experience in subrecipient agencies, projects, service delivery, and decision-making. So how subrecipient agencies are routinely gathering feedback from people experiencing homelessness and looking at those who have received assistance from COC or even ESG programs on their experience receiving assistance and those steps that projects are taking to address challenges raised by those people. And making sure that we're involving them in these processes and our feedback loop and changes that are needed for COC projects. So we will send out both of those questions were added to the new project scoring tool, the renewal project scoring tool, and new this year is the coordinate entry project scoring tool. So those 2 questions were added to both of the tools. We removed points from the balance of state questions, where how many meetings have you attended, in order to accommodate those 2 questions. So we removed 2 points from COC participation and added them 1 point each for each of those equity questions to the scoring tools. So I will pause there. See if anyone has any questions.
And this will be one of those items that we send out the electronic vote on. So we want you to think about it. We'll send it out for you to look at, and then there will be a Survey Monkey vote for you to vote on adding these questions or not. And Chrissy, can you stop sharing your screen so we can see?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we will be sending out drafts of all 3 of the scoring tools for you to review. Once these are finalized, because I know Ellen asked this question, once the tools are either approved or rejected, once they're finally approved, I can begin to work on the scoring of renewal project applications. I just finally emphasize, we added these 2 questions, really looking at what HUD was focusing on for policy priorities from the NOPO this year.
Yeah, and it's important, like you'll hear us say a lot, like HUD wants, but we do try and be very cautious, or, you know, at least when I work with communities, about HUD wants it and its value added, I think is the second part of the question, right? Like it has to add value for New Hampshire also. So I think that you'll find that balance. There's some things HUD has asked for, we're like, nope, that does not make sense for a rural state, right? Like, so just wanted to add that as we get very points and narrative focus, do know that the larger system is as important, because that's what happens every day.
You know, I warn people throughout the year that when it's NOPO time, we are very point driven, but I try to remember to say the same thing, Melanie, that it comes back to improving our system and the people we're trying to serve. But getting more points on this competition allows us to serve more people. So we do get, I do anyway, I get tunnel vision this time of year when it's, especially right now with such a tight time frame. So feel free to call me on it if you think I'm just chasing points and don't care about the system. I promise I do. It just, I might not say it as much as I should this time of year. So while we're talking regular NOPO, I just realized I wrote NOPA on my timeline. Let me fix that. I will share our timeline. It is in draft form because some of it we can't do until HUD gives us certain things. So you'll see this time frame is unreasonable, and we acknowledge that, and we apologize for it, and we thank you for your patience with it. So we anticipate releasing our RFP by this Friday, knowing that our exact dollar amounts for bonus funding may not actually be available yet. So if we don't have that dollar amount, the RFP will say anticipated, approximate, and it'll be based on that formula that was on Melanie's summary where it showed 5% of and then 10% of a different number. Once we do have the final dollar amounts, we will edit it and republish it for everyone to see the exact dollar amounts, but we want people to have as much time as possible, realizing that we are not able to give you very much time at all. So my dates are all out of order here. This is an old one too. This should come off. Sorry about that. So Friday, we anticipate releasing the RFP. The 2 that are highlighted, we need to change. We'll change those dates once Christy is able to send the actual renewal project applications out for review. We have tentative deadlines that Christy already described. She sent out last year's documents to everybody yesterday with feedback requested by Friday. But if something dramatic changes, we will have to resend those to everyone so that we can look at them. So that part will change. New project applications will be due to me. They'll come to me directly by Monday, August 29th. So we realize that we're giving you, I'm trying to look at my calendar, about 2.5 weeks to do a new project application. We understand that that is a really, really challenging deadline. And we really can't do anything about that. So if there are ways we can help you, we will. Knowing that it's a competition, we can't do your project application for you. Our ranking committee meeting is already scheduled for Friday, September 2nd. I did reach out to the executive committee to see if anyone would like to be a part of the ranking committee, and I think I've received 1 response so far. At this point, I'm looking for anyone to be a part of our ranking committee. so please let me know. You cannot be on the ranking committee if your agency is submitting a new project application. Renewals are fine because the ranking committee does not review the renewals. Renewals are all based on data, but if your agency is submitting a new project application, you cannot be reviewing the new project application. So we did give ourselves a tiny bit of a buffer here, 2 days. We like to try and give us a little bit of extra space. This year, we can't give ourselves as much as usual. So the ranking committee will meet on Friday, September 7th. We will notify everyone who applied about the status of their applications. Appeals will be due to BHS in writing 2 days after that. And then, July up. I'm in the wrong month. Whatever day of the week September 12th is, we will publish our final project listing. So that's after the appeals have been submitted, if any. September 12th, we'll publish the final project listing. We technically have until the 15th to do all of that, but we, again, like to give ourselves a tiny bit of a buffer. And then we anticipate posting our final complete COC application for review on September 26th. With comments due back to BHS by September 28th at 3 p.m. That way, if there are no major concerns, complaints, issues, we can submit that afternoon. With a buffer of about a day and a half. So that is our target timeline for this year. It is going to be very challenging, and I'm going to stop sharing this. I will send this out for everyone once I've cleaned up the highlighted yellow section. I will try to make our communications about NOVO as clear as possible. I think in my subject line, I will put NOVO first and then what I'm requesting so that you can see right away that I am sending NOVO communication. Any NOVO communication that is coming out will be time sensitive. And again, I'm not trying to be unreasonable in that. It's the reality of our time frame this year. So again, I apologize in advance and I thank you in advance for your understanding. Melanie, any other regular COC high level stuff before I let Mandy talk a little bit about the supplemental NOFO?
The only thing I would say, if there's new folks here, or folks that have been through this with us in the past, yes, we won't be publishing the RFP till Friday, but you know now, right? The project types that are being allowed, you can kind of guess from last year, the money probably is going to be about the same, at least for bonus. So if you have time before Friday, not that anyone probably has a lot, but if you have time, it's okay to start thinking about your project design now. You don't have to wait till Friday for this document to come out to tell you it could be PSH, it could be rapid, it could be, right? Like the rules haven't changed that much this year. We just don't know what the numbers are yet. And HUD's doing a webinar Thursday. So hopefully that means the materials will be out. They don't want to talk to the whole country without publishing materials, but we'll see. So just if you're thinking about a project, look at last year's RFP, look at, read the rule about what's allowed. You can get a jump on it if you have time in the next 3 days before that comes out. So just that's the other reason we wanted to talk about it today.
Okay. So while this is happening, we also have the supplemental notice of funding opportunity that came out for rural and unsheltered homelessness. We have 72 days left on that one compared to the 52 days we have for the regular competition. We are trying to keep our time frames aligned for the ease of just for all of us, I guess, for managing different deadlines. So as part of the RFP that comes out, there will be a separate document that explains the project types that are allowed under the supplemental competition. There will be tools that come out with that as well. And Mandy is going to talk a little bit about HUD's priorities on those items, what's eligible, and then we will send more information out on Friday as well. So Mandy, go ahead.
Screen sharing. So in the meantime, I just want to say, if you're brand new to this process, welcome. We're happy
You should
to
be able
have
to,
you.
Mandy.
Okay, awesome. Happy to have you here. And we fully recognize that this may seem like a different language. Like, please don't be intimidated by that. We are here for you. We want to make this as accessible as possible, and we want to bring people to the table. So with that said, let's share my screen here. So we did review kind of an overview the last balance of state meeting. So I did kind of a hybrid for those that are newer to this and those that this is old hat for you all. You've done this a million times. I'm going to quickly go through this. So just as a reminder, this NOFO is broken out into two different funding opportunities, those for unsheltered homelessness and those focusing on rural regions. There are two different funding buckets underneath that, the unsheltered maximum and the rural maximum. And again, this will all be coming out in these documents that will be released this week. So regardless of the unsheltered or the rural category that you're looking to apply for, all project types are the same. So supportive services only, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, or transitional housing, rapid rehousing combination. So some of these are in the regular NOFO, you're familiar with them all, but I did include at the end of this presentation a full list of them with reference documents for those that are newer to this and are looking for more information about what is included in each. But I did want to just highlight the supportive services only that is included in this SNOFO, as we're calling it. So coordinated entry, that is one we've seen in the regular NOFO that helps us administer our coordinated entry process. There's street outreach SSO, supportive services only, which is pretty straightforward. That's a street outreach project. And then the standalone project, this is for individuals and families who have experienced homelessness in the last 6 months, but who are now residing in permanent housing that is not COC or, PSH or rapid rehousing, or are currently experiencing homelessness. So if you think about the number of resources that have come through, housing choice vouchers or other funding streams that can do things like rental assistance, but may not come with those supportive services, that case management to help support that project, this is where that SSO standalone project could fit in. HUD has also provided other examples about what this standalone SSO project could look like. Things like housing navigation for people experiencing homelessness, drop-in centers that provide supportive services, family unification services to reunite people experiencing homelessness with their families. So the SSO category provides a lot of opportunities to really boost up these service components to a lot of the housing and rental assistance that we've seen coming out over the last couple of years. So with that said, I want to just focus on a couple differences within the two buckets that we're talking about. So unsheltered, that set aside, all projects must focus only on category 1 of the definition of homelessness or 4. So just as a reminder, what does that mean? So category 1 is the not fit for human habitation. Anyone residing in emergency shelter or hotel, motel paid for by third party, or anyone that is exiting an institution where they have entered as experiencing homelessness and exited within 90 days. Category 4, DV specific, so any individual or family who is fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, has no other residence, and then lacks the resources or supports to obtain other permanent housing. The unsheltered can be served anywhere within the balance of state geography. In contrast to that, rural, HUD has defined what rural means for the balance of state continuum. So under the formula they gave us, the following counties are eligible for the NOFO services. So not that your agency has to be based in these counties, but in order to have a project approved, the services or the project type that is administered must take place in these counties. So Belknap, Carroll, Cheshire, Coos, Grafton, Merrimack, and Sullivan. Unlike the unsheltered definitions, this project type, you can serve any of that definition of homelessness. So category 1, 2, or 4. So category 3 is specific. It's very focused on unaccompanied youth and other youth-specific criteria that must be approved by HUD. We do not have that approval by HUD. So at this point, we cannot apply anyone to category 3. So very important in that. And as part of the supplemental materials we'll be sending out, we will include HUD's definition of homelessness and the record keeping requirements. So we all are on the same page with what is included in that homeless definition. There are also new eligible costs on the rural side. So again, only in those specific regions, HUD has allowed additional costs over and above what traditionally is seen in the NOFO process because of the lack of infrastructure and resources in these communities. So some examples that you'll see coming out in the document are things like emergency food and clothing, capacity building for your agencies, up to 6 months of rent or utility arrears after 2 months of non-payment, emergency lodging, hotel, motel, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of different components that are not traditionally seen. So on the unsheltered side, we will be graded, if you will, by HUD as a COC. So know that unsheltered side is extremely competitive. We are a small state with not a lot of folks experiencing unsheltered homelessness relative to communities like New York City and Los Angeles, and some of the Texas communities. So smaller communities, smaller COCs are going to be extremely competitive in this. So all of this is a maybe on the unsheltered side. But what's very important to know is that on the rural side, HUD is grading, if you will, projects. So the individual projects applications that are submitted will be reviewed on a 100-point scale. Importantly, these are related. This is not siloing the rural and the unsheltered homelessness separately. So 50% of your score in your project application is our overall COC score, followed by the project ranking within the COC, and then serving structurally disadvantaged areas. So HUD has defined this, and we'll be noting this in the priority tool I'll be talking about in just a moment. All right. So requirements of all projects, regardless of which bucket you're applying for. Housing first. We talk about this a lot, but HUD has come back very strong in this NOFO that we are to be practicing housing first, fidelity to the model, not just checking a box. We know homelessness is ended by housing, and that is first and foremost our focus, not requiring services or any preconditions on that housing. So you're going to see that a lot in our ranking tools because it is a HUD priority and requirement. The other thing that is important to note for all applicants is that HUD is assessing our COC response to identifying, sheltering, and housing individuals and families experiencing homelessness with severe service needs. So we, as a continuum, will be attaching a plan to our application to show the efforts that are being done and how they will contribute ongoing to our response. So when we started talking about this, when we released this information, we were kind of flooded by you all saying, our region's doing this, we're already working on this plan. So for us, it made sense, rather than starting from the ground and putting together a plan, to source you all. So we will be attending your local community meetings to talk to you about what's already going on. We know HUD's priorities, and we know where they're looking for us to input information. You can see here across the screen. But it just makes sense to utilize the expertise in our continuum to build a comprehensive plan that is actually happening, right? So know that over the next couple months, we do have some time to build this, thankfully, on our end. We will be reaching out to you all for that. We will be gathering information and then submitting a plan to you all for discussion about what is missing, what else is needed, etc. So with all of that in mind, we are discussing how to prioritize these projects. So I want to echo Christy and Melissa and Melanie's comments about the scoring and the points. Again, it's the right thing to do. However, if we are not competitive as a COC, we can't be competitive for our projects, and therefore we will not get the funding to support the projects to serve our folks. So in light of everything we just talked about, HUD's priorities, hearing from you all about what's missing in your communities, our proposal for a prioritization of the funding for this NOFO is to have the highest ranking projects be supportive services only, permanent supportive housing, followed by rapid rehousing and the transitional rapid rehousing combination project. So this will be a vote that comes out to you all after the meeting. So please keep this in mind. And if we have time at the end, maybe we can open it up for discussions of any thoughts about that. So we will also have a scoring tool, as Christy just mentioned and went through. We want to mirror this process as much as possible with the regular NOFO because they're both COC funds. They should talk to each other, and everything that Melanie mentioned as priorities in that NOFO are also priorities in this NOFO. So in effort to not be confusing, we want to keep it as consistent as possible. That way we as a ranking committee can be objective in these project review and applications, and you know that we're speaking the same language. The only difference on the scoring tool for this NOFO will be the structurally disadvantaged regions. You will get 2 points, and the plan for identifying, housing, or sheltering individuals or families experiencing homelessness with severe service needs, that plan you will get up to 5 points. So again, those are requirements that HUD will be scoring us on. So including it in the ranking allows us to be the most competitive and choose projects that will get us the highest ranking that we can, with fingers crossed that we get the funding. And we will be requiring a vote from you all on that as well. So that's all I have on the presentation. Stop sharing.
So that was a lot of information we just gave to all of you. Does anyone have any questions about what Mandy just shared? And if you, I'll put it out there, you can send us your questions after the fact too. This is not the last time you get to ask your questions. As I noted in the chat, we can't talk about individual project applications. We do have to treat it as a competition and maintain some level of, I don't know what the right word is. Confidentiality is not the right word, but integrity to the competition. But as far as like priorities, process, eligible activities, reactions.
So I saw Ellen has a question in the chat about the timeline. So we are having the same timeline for the supplemental NOFO on the project application and all of the nuts and bolts of the application process. We are giving additional time on the plan, so that will be a longer process because of the priority HUD is placed on that. That is 50% of our overall score. So taking the time to really invest in that, again, will make us the most competitive we can. And we recognize this is tight turnaround, but in order to not double your admin, to have you go to 2 separate meetings for 2 separate NOFOs, we just thought it was the only way really to move forward. We're also hearing staffing capacity is challenging, so we're trying to meet you where we can with these tight timelines.
Ellen, there may be a little bit more time for like, after we get through the review of the project applications to clean it up and like, make it pretty for HUD. But on top of the project priority listing, this is for the supplemental note competition. We have to do a project priority list like we do for the regular NOFO. We have to do a COC application, which is a set of questions like we do for the regular NOFO. And on top of that, we have to do a 15-page plan addressing unsheltered homelessness. So it adds like an extra component that we don't normally have. So some of it really is our capacity as well to manage all of it. And I think we acknowledge that project applications may not be the strongest we've ever seen because we're not giving you enough time to do it.
By investing in the plan, our hope is that score, that 50% of your project score, will help you get above other project types and other continuums, if that makes sense.
And one other question, that standalone thing that you could do in the supplemental NOFO. So those people would already be housed, right? It's providing supportive services to people who have been housed in the last 6 months, I think it said, but then they wouldn't really be fitting that definition of category 1 or category 4.
So it could be persons experiencing homelessness or up to 6 months have been permanently housed, not in a permanent supportive housing or rapid rehousing. So really we'd be looking for that on the rural side, that opens it up to that category 2 homeless as well.
Yeah, and to clarify, HUD puts a lot of language in these NOFOs, but they want people in literal homelessness moving out of it. So while they give us the world sometimes about what you can do, the focus really would be on moving people out and then maybe following up with them. So if you're going to design something, think about the front end versus the follow-on services that we know is a huge gap. So.
And the final one,
Go ahead, Ellen, and then I see Craig's hand up.
if we have questions about the special NOFO, the extra NOFO, Mandy, are you the person? Who's the person we would ask about a particular project we want to submit?
So I would send all communication to me and I will be directing traffic here.
Okay.
just for ease of communication. That way you only have to remember one person. And I will put it out there over the next 2 weeks. If you email me, you will get an out of office email response. I am only working NOFO. I am taking vacation from the rest of my job. I don't know how that works. But my kids don't have childcare for the next 3 weeks. So I'm multitasking. So what you may see is an out of office response and then an email from me later in the day than usual. But I will be checking it throughout the work days. And Craig, you had a question?
I just wanted to clarify. So Mandy, the rural has the most money, but it's limited geographically to the 6 counties. And it is more inclusive of the definitions of homelessness that we can serve with it.
And we're only going against other rural communities. So the pool that we're against is smaller as well in terms of competition.
Okay, thank you.
So Tony, I saw your question about the webinar. I can forward the email from the SNAPS program office, but the best way to stay up to date with any of the HUD webinars that come out is to sign up directly for their their listserv so that you get the HUD Exchange emails and the SNAPS program information emails. The webinar information did come from the SNAPS email, so I will forward that to everyone. I don't see it on the HUD Exchange yet, but the HUD Exchange has been a little bit slow to catch up this year. So when I go there, I often am finding FY21 documents, not the 22, but I do strongly encourage you to sign up for those SNAPS office emails. So we have 1 more minute scheduled for today. Now we're 10 o'clock. So what I'll say is we will send as much information out as we can on Friday. As HUD updates information, we will send that out as well. I do plan to keep, as of today anyway, I do plan to keep our September COC meeting scheduled just in case there are things that we need to address with everyone there. If the time is getting tight and we don't have time to do the meeting, we'll communicate that out to everyone. I think that's all I have for today. I have a list of the voting items we'll be sending out to everyone. I will do my best to really make it clear when I'm sending NOFO communication out. Again, if anyone's interested in being part of our review team, please email me. And I think that's it for today. I know that was a lot. Please don't hesitate to reach out with questions. We are here for you as best as we can be. There may be some hysterical laughter on this side as we, process the time frame. It's better than crying. So just stay with us and we'll get through. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll post the recording soon as well.